A weekend family reunion should have been a time of laughter, warmth, and bonding. But for Suri, it marked the beginning of the biggest betrayal of her life. After spending 3 days at her mother's house in Portland to celebrate her 70th birthday, Suri returned to her modest apartment in Seattle, exhausted but glowing from the familiar hugs and joyful conversations. She set down her luggage, made a cup of mint tea, and sat down to pay the electric bill. But when she opened her banking app, her world shifted. Available balance, $83.52. She blinked, then blinked again. Before the weekend, there had been over $9,000 in that account, hard-earned savings from her job as a brand manager at a pharmaceutical firm. Her hands trembled. Her heart raced. She called the bank immediately. The transactions were made from a device previously logged in, the rep explained. Same IP address as a computer located in Portland. There was only one place in Portland where Suri had ever accessed her bank account, her mother's computer. She remembered clearly. She'd checked her email briefly. Maybe she hadn't logged out properly, but still. Suri grabbed her car keys, driven not by curiosity, but by the storm of fury boiling in her chest. Within an hour, she was back in the kitchen of her childhood home. Once a place of sweetness, now bitter. "Oh, you're back early," her younger sister Emma said casually from the couch, legs crossed, sipping red wine like nothing had happened. Lucas, Emma's husband, emerged from the kitchen holding a soda. He leaned against the fridge, smirking. "We needed the money more than you, Suri." It hit her like a slap. She froze. "You live alone. No debt, no kids. We're barely scraping by," Emma added, as if Suri should be grateful she wasn't robbed of more. Her mother, Clarice, sat knitting, unfazed. "You always take things too personally. You have more. It's only fair to share a little." Her father, Raymond, muttered from behind his newspaper, "Don't be harsh." It's family. No guilt, no apology, just cold dismissal and shameless justification. When Suri asked how they accessed her account, Emma shrugged. "You didn't log out. I just reopened the tab." But inside Suri, something deeper than anger took root, a quiet but resolute fury. No one stopped her when she picked up her purse. No one asked if she was okay. Only her mother's voice called out of habit, "Don't forget Sunday dinner." Suri paused at the door, turned to face them one last time. "If you think this ends here, wait and see." Emma giggled. "Suri, don't be so dramatic." But the rain had started outside, and inside Suri, a storm was already roaring. This wasn't just about the money. It was about trust. And it had been broken. The kitchen, once warm with the scent of cookies and echoes of childhood laughter, now felt cold and distant. Suri stood among the walls that had once felt like home but now seemed foreign, suffocating. No one had apologized. No one showed remorse. Only icy words that made her feel like she was the problem. "You know how hard this month has been for us?" Lucas said, his tone almost casual. "We use that money for rent, milk for the baby, and Emma's medication." "That was my money," Suri replied, voice trembling but firm. "And I never gave anyone permission to take it." Emma let out a dry laugh. "You're always playing the martyr. You don't know what it's like to have nothing." Those words hurt more than the missing money. Nothing? What about her? Suri had no one to lean on, no partner to share the weight. She too had sleepless nights and quiet struggles. She just didn't burden others with them. "And you, Mom?" Suri turned to Clarice, who was steadily knitting as if none of this involved her. "You knew. You let them do this?" Clarice sighed, long and cold like wind slipping through a cracked window. You're the most stable one. Helping a little, what's so wrong with that? You always take things too personally. Suri clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms. Each word was a wound. She'd sacrificed so much, paid her mother's overdue bills, helped Emma buy a car, wired emergency rent to Lucas. Not once did anyone ask if she could afford it. Her father, Raymond, finally spoke without looking up from the newspaper. You've always been the strongest one. That's why everyone trusted you. Suri let out a brittle laugh. Trusted me? Is that what you call stealing someone's banking information? That's not trust. That's taking advantage. Emma slammed her palm on the table, frustration finally showing. We didn't buy luxury items. This was survival. You think we enjoyed doing this? And what about me? Suri snapped. Her voice no longer shook. When I worked 60 hours a week to pay off your debts. When I canceled vacations just to keep Lucas from getting evicted. When I lived on instant noodles for a month to help Mom. Silence fell. Only the ticking of the kitchen clock remained. Suri opened her purse and pulled out a folder. Evidence of every transfer, receipt, message. She didn't want repayment, but she would not let them forget. She looked at her mother one last time, her voice calm but resolute. If this is how you treat the only person who never asked for anything, don't be surprised when I start taking back what I deserve. Lucas scoffed. What are you going to do, call the police? Suri met his gaze, steady and cold. Just wait and see. And for the first time in her life, she walked out of that house without a single ounce of regret. No more biting her tongue, no more quiet sacrifice. All that remained now was clarity, and the fire she'd just lit wasn't meant to burn bridges, but to illuminate the path ahead. The sky hadn't gone completely dark yet as Suri drove away from the house that once meant safety, but now only echoed betrayal. Seattle rain tapped gently on the windshield, masking the silent heartbreak in her chest. She didn't want to go home. She needed space, time, air. She pulled into the lot near Green Lake Park, the one where she jogged every Saturday. Sitting behind the wheel, she stared at her phone screen. $83.52. A number that felt as cold as Emma's voice when she said, "You live alone, you'll be fine." But they didn't know. They didn't know that when Suri was 27 and had just landed a job as a brand manager at a pharma company, Emma had called, "My phone got cut off. Can you spot me some cash?" She didn't hesitate. She just wired it. Then came Lucas, unemployed for over 6 months, calling at midnight. "I just need a few hundred to get by." She sent the money that same night, no questions asked. Each year on Lily's birthday, Emma's daughter, came with a gift suggestion list where the cheapest item was over $200. Suri once hesitated, but her mother called sweetly, "She's so excited. You're not getting her anything." And so, year after year, Suri became the go-to person for every financial emergency. Emma needed help with a car. Suri paid the deposit. Lucas lost his wallet. She wired cash. Mom's power got cut off. She dipped into savings. They always said, "You're the most stable one." But no one ever asked, "Are you okay?" They didn't see the nights she cried alone, overwhelmed. The vacation she skipped to cover Lucas's rent. The weeks she lived on instant noodles so her mom's electricity could stay on. Those quiet sacrifices. They called privilege, duty. But to Suri, they were slow erasure. Not of her bank account, but of her self-worth. She opened her notes app and began writing down every transfer, every receipt, every time she said yes when she wanted to say no. Not to ask for it back, but to never forget again. The rain eased. Sunlight tried to peek through the clouds. Suri sat straighter, hands on the wheel. This time, she wasn't looking back. When she got home, dusk had fallen. She went straight to her desk, pulled out a folder of receipts, transfer confirmations, screenshots, documents from years past. She didn't keep them out of paranoia. She kept them because deep down, she'd always known this day might come. Over the next 3 nights, she barely slept. She built a spreadsheet, categorized every transaction, green for medical, yellow for living, red for unjustifiable, like the $1,350 Lucas spent on a gaming console last Black Friday. She remembered that clearly. She had to cancel a winter getaway to make her insurance payment. On Monday morning, she walked into the Financial Crimes Division downtown, carrying a folder, USB, and complaint form. Officer Harper reviewed every page with a nod. "We'll begin a preliminary investigation into financial abuse and unauthorized access," Harper said. "Do you have names?" "I do," Suri replied. "Emma Bennett, Lucas Bennett, Clarice Moore, Raymond Moore." Outside, the sky stayed gray, but inside her, a spark had been lit. Not because she wanted them punished, but because, for the first time, she had stopped staying silent. 2 weeks after her visit to the Financial Crimes Office, Suri was in a Zoom meeting when her phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. She muted her mic, stepped out onto the balcony, and answered. "Ms. Suri Moore?" a woman's voice asked. "This is Officer Harper. We've completed the preliminary investigation. There's enough evidence to proceed. The investigative unit will visit each related residence today." Suri stood still, not out of fear, but from an overwhelming, unexpected relief. A part of her had waited for this moment far too long. The moment when truth no longer hid behind excuses wrapped in the word family. That evening, as she was preparing dinner, her phone wouldn't stop vibrating. First her mom, then Emma, then Lucas. She didn't answer. Then the messages came. "Suri, call me back now." "What is going on? I can't believe you really called the police." She ignored them. An hour later, a text came from her old neighbor. "There are financial crimes officers at your mom's house. They asked about you." The next day at work, Suri noticed curious glances. Her manager, Mr. Jensen, approached her gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We got a call from a local reporter asking to confirm an investigation involving your name. We didn't say anything. But if you need time..." Suri smiled softly. "I'm okay. I'm doing the right thing." That night, she sat by the window, watching city lights flicker like quiet stars. Her heart still stormed, but it wasn't rage anymore. It was clarity. She had done the hardest thing, stand up to those closest to her. Emma's words still echoed. "This family survives because of you." Yes, they survived, on her sacrifices, but never once did they see her as a person, just a walking wallet. Her phone buzzed again, an unfamiliar email from Lucas. "Suri, please, I've been suspended. They're investigating my accounts. I can't lose everything over one mistake. Can't you say something?" She stared at the message. No guilt stirred in her chest. The same man who laughed when she was broken was now begging, but Suri no longer trembled. She had walked through the storm and emerged stronger. Thursday morning, Officer Harper called. "We've confirmed the unauthorized withdrawals. Emma is under investigation for fraud. Lucas accessed a device without permission. Your parents used part of the funds for a mortgage violation." Suri said nothing. Not from shock, but from the ache of knowing they still didn't understand. That this wasn't about money. It was about years of buried silence finally speaking. That evening, her father sent one line. "Bank issued a foreclosure notice. 30 days to pay or we lose the house. No apology, no remorse, just cold facts, still expecting her to fix everything. But this time, she didn't. Because Suri was no longer the woman who smiled through the pain. She was the woman who had finally said, enough. 3 weeks later, on a foggy morning, Suri placed her suitcase in the trunk of a rented car, gently closed the lid, and looked up at the building she had called home for 6 years. No one knew she was leaving. No calls from her mother, no texts from Emma, no emails from Lucas anymore. Everything had gone quiet, and to Suri, that silence was freedom. She drove away from Seattle under a gray sky, but her heart felt light. The road ahead stretched out like a blank canvas, free of burdens, of midnight money pleas, of heavy dinners filled with blame and manipulation. Her destination, Boulder, Colorado. She had visited once on a business trip a few years back. Just a few hours wandering around downtown, sipping coffee in a cozy cafe with soft jazz and golden lights. But the calm she felt that day stuck with her, like a memory from a life she was meant to live. Now, Boulder wasn't unfamiliar. It was a beginning. Suri rented a small studio apartment overlooking snowy mountains. The space was simple, white walls, wide windows soaking in the sunrise. Within days, she bought a new desk, filled vases with fresh flowers, rolled out a rug, and hung art. Not for anyone else, just for herself. For the first time in years, she didn't need to clear space for someone else's needs. She changed her phone number, told her company she'd be working remotely for an indefinite period. And strangely, when her energy was no longer drained by her family, it returned. She slept better, ate regularly, her mind felt clear, her creativity sparked. 2 weeks in, her boss called. Suri, I just reviewed your new strategy plan. It's brilliant. Have you considered taking over as regional coordinator for the entire West Coast? She looked out the window. Sunlight filtered through the pines like a quiet blessing. A year ago, she would have said no, still tethered to responsibilities she never chose. But now she smiled and replied, I'm ready. That evening, Suri made herself tea, curled into a blanket on the balcony, and let the mountain breeze run through her hair. She had done it. She had broken the cycle. No more desperate messages. No more, it's just a loan, I swear. No more morning anxiety checks on her bank app. Now, every message she received came from people who asked, how are you feeling today? Or, want to grab dinner? From coworkers, old friends, or new ones from her yoga class. No one asked for money. They just cared. One afternoon, she returned to the same Boulder cafe, sat at the same table by the window. The owner remembered her. You asked me about that jazz track, didn't you? She laughed. That was me. I live here now. He nodded, gesturing outside. This place heals a lot of people. She nodded back. Nothing more needed to be said. That night, she wrote in her journal, I spent my youth guarding a door no one ever entered to see me, only to take. Now I've locked that door, and I'm keeping the key. This new life wasn't loud. There were no cheers, but it was quiet. And to her, that was the most luxurious thing she'd ever owned. One crisp fall morning, while watering the tiny pots of herbs on her balcony, Suri's phone pinged with a soft chime. A new email. She set the watering can down, poured herself some tea, and opened her inbox. The sender's name made her pause. Melanie Tran. It took her a moment to place the name. Melanie was a distant cousin. Quiet, almost invisible at family gatherings. The kind of girl who faded into the corner, speaking only when spoken to. Suri never imagined she even had her email address. The subject line read, "Thank you, Suri." And the message inside brought tears to her eyes. "You probably don't remember me well. I'm Melanie, Aunt Kim's daughter. After Lily's birthday years ago, you gave me a ride home. I still remember the silence in that car. It wasn't awkward. It was peaceful. I stayed quiet for years, thinking I didn't have the right to speak. My family always said I was lucky, so I had to give more. I worked 3 jobs, still sending money back home every month. Whenever I hesitated, they called me selfish. But when I heard your story, how you stood up and said no, something changed. I realized I wasn't alone. You helped me see that setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's how we protect ourselves." Suri sat frozen. Each word felt like a ripple on the still pond inside her. Not pride, not victory, but connection. Melanie wasn't the first. A few weeks earlier, an old college friend messaged her after reading a post on Suri's blog. "I used to think you were just strong. Like, unshakably strong. Now I get it. You were too strong for too long, and everyone assumed you'd always be fine. You never asked for anything. That's why they took." Suri had reread that line again and again. For years, she believed being kind meant staying silent. But now she knew. Kindness doesn't mean abandoning your own boundaries. That night, she wrote back to Melanie, "I truly didn't expect my story to reach someone like you. Thank you for sharing your truth. I know how hard that is. You're not selfish. You're not ungrateful. You're just learning to love yourself in the right way, and you're not alone." When she hit send, something crystallized inside her. She hadn't lost her family. She had redefined it. Family now meant people who loved without expectation, who gave without demand, who respected others as whole human beings, not walking wallets. The next morning, sunlight spilled into her room like a gentle blessing. Her heart no longer felt heavy. She was no longer the old Suri, the one who always stepped back, always made space for others at her own expense. She was Suri who said, "Enough," and most beautiful of all, she wasn't alone. Somewhere out there, others like Melanie were finding their voice, stepping out of the shadows. And if Suri's journey lit even a small piece of their path, then every tear she'd shed was worth it. On Sunday afternoon, she strolled through the local park. The maple trees had turned from green to gold to fiery red. A little girl rode by on a bicycle, her mother laughing behind her, calling, "Slow down, sweetheart." Suri stopped, paper coffee cup in hand, watching the moment like a living painting. A sense of lightness rose in her chest, a feeling she thought she'd lost, but now had found again. Peace. Sometimes, the people we love most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. Suri's story is more than a tale of justice. It's the journey of a woman who dared to say enough after years of being the one who carried everyone else's weight. Through each heartbreak and every cold word, she learned the truth we all need to hear. Kindness doesn't mean being used, and love doesn't mean self-erasure. Have you ever stayed silent just to avoid being called selfish? How many times have you helped others, even when you were drowning, simply because it felt like your duty? If you said yes, then maybe you need to hear this too. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cold. It makes you real. Suri's lesson isn't just for those hurt by family. It's for anyone learning to love themselves the right way. Change doesn't come with grand declarations. It starts with one quiet but powerful truth. I deserve better. Remember, no one has the right to steal your peace. Family, if it truly loves you, won't weaponize that love. And love that lasts must come from both sides, not just your silent endurance. If this story spoke to you, leave a comment below. Share your journey, even if it's just a single step. If you know someone who needs this message, share this video with them. And if you believe in the power of real stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. Because sometimes a story doesn't just need to be heard, it needs to wake us up. And maybe, just maybe, by choosing to love yourself in the right way, you'll light the way for someone else, just as Suri did.